Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm delighted to welcome a very senior and accomplished professional from Los Angeles, USA, Mr. David Carr. David, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's a real honor.
Thank you. David is the founder and chief executive officer of Steward Your Business. He's focused on architecture, engineering, and construction. He's also the host of the Intelligent Human Leadership and Business Roundtable podcasts.
Yes.
So, David, before we start talking about any of the work that you're doing, tell me what was the inspiration to found Steward Your Business?
Well, thank you for asking the question. It was quite a journey. I've spent over 25 years since the late 90s. My degree is actually in zoology. I worked in environmental consulting, among others, and working, like you said, architecture, engineering. And I saw a lot of folks that were really good subject matter experts, technical. They're really good in their field. But as I saw in my career, there's a
Mhm,
place of advancement into beyond management. Certainly, management is part of it,
mhm,
but then there's an opportunity for leadership too. And a lot of those skills are not something that we've been taught. We don't know how to do those things.
mhm,
And I found I was really good at bringing people together and empowering them. And I learned how to do that myself. I had to learn
mhm.
how to be a leader, how to have other people want to follow. And so Steward Your Business came about as stewarding people, your greatest resource as a business owner, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And how do you do that? And so I started that 3 years ago. We're on year four now. I started in 2022, and I just realized I could help more businesses rather than doing it in just one. And that was really my passion of
Mhm.
learning from my own troubles, my own trials as an individual, and then saying, how could I help others?
Fascinating. And how did
Mhm.
your experience in environmental consulting
Mhm.
influence your consulting philosophy?
That's a great question too. You know, it's been a bit of a journey because I've had to learn how to infuse a couple different things. From a consultant is really guiding you. You're an advisor. You're telling people specific things to do. A coach is asking some different questions. I've had to learn and maneuver some different ways, being from a coach to consultant to maybe a teacher, trainer, facilitator.
Mhm.
I've had to learn a little bit of those skills and recognize the nuance in all of those.
Mhm.
And that has helped me. But I realized at first I didn't understand that. And it took a little bit of dynamics in myself and
Mhm.
then recognizing, okay, no, I really need to be coaching now. No, now I really need to be consulting and vice versa and kind of moving between that.
Fascinating. Fascinating.
Mhm.
How do you define resilient leadership in today's business environment?
Ooh, resiliency. I think in today's world, we've got a lot of things coming at us. And what I find folks that are resilient means that they know how to find others around them. And
Mhm.
so that's where I come and help empower them because if it's just you, you're gonna burn out at some point. There's just not enough. You can't know enough. You can't have all the answers. You don't. It's just there isn't enough, and you will burn out at some point.
Mhm.
You'll get overwhelmed. And those I find that are resilient recognize that yes, I'm gonna get tripped up. I will make mistakes, but I know where to get help.
Yeah.
I know where to reach out, and that's why I love your podcast because there's so many different brands. As I listened, I was telling you before, I was listening to different people. I'm like, oh my
Mhm.
goodness, there's different knowledge out there
Yeah.
and if you learn that early on and humble yourself, get pride out of the way, and say, you know what, I could use help in this area, you're definitely going to be much more resilient.
Correct, correct. And you're so right. I mean, there's so many people who listen to your conversation with me and learn many, many new things from you today.
Mm-hmm.
David, moving on, you've done so much work with so many different people. What,
Mm-hmm.
in your view, are some of the common leadership challenges you see in the AEC and the tech-enabled businesses?
What I find is there's a kind of a sometimes we see in our industry or in the world, we see a type of leader.
Hmm.
And it's a way of leading, but it's not the only way to lead. And I
Right.
think sometimes there's very strong personalities out there. You look at heads of state, you look at people, companies like Elon Musk, you pick Steve Jobs. There's people that, and they have a very strong way of being, and it works. But we have to recognize there's other ways of being and there's other ways of leading. And I think when we do that, we're going to be better as an organization. We're going to be healthier. And I
Mm,
think, well, oftentimes there's that they miss that. Organizations miss that, and they don't realize, oh, there's different ways of being, and I want to have a holistic approach.
mm,
Um, and so and in particularly when I talk about science, engineers, where sometimes they're very specific, they're very linear, they're very check the box, they're very risk averse, and that's not a bad thing, but they might be resistant to some maybe somebody that's more creative or innovative. And I
mm,
recognize if you lean into that and get a little uncomfortable for both of you and explore those things, you'll be better off in the long run. That's
mm.
one of the main areas I see,
Yeah,
Ashish.
very well
Hmm.
said. And what are some early warning signs that a company's operations need restructuring?
Mm. Well, in today's age, I'm 51, I'm a Gen Xer. I see a lot of dynamics in the what drives the millennials, the Gen Zs, and when you start having people not stick around your company, there's a lot of quiet quitting. You're not sure why aren't they sticking around? Why aren't they growing? They don't see the bigger vision. I find a lot of times businesses, they might have, hopefully they've gone through and identified what their core mission is and their vision and their values, but oftentimes it's not communicated clearly. It doesn't resonate with the team, and you have people that don't feel like they fit in. And I found, particularly for the younger generations of the Gen Zs, particularly millennials a little lesser, but if they don't feel in alignment with purpose and living out their life, they're more apt to leave.
Mm,
And I think businesses underestimate the cost that takes to recruit, to hire, to bring somebody back into the mix, to get up
mm,
to speed. And so I would say, look and see. I've asked the company, do you have doing exit interviews? No, we haven't actually done exit interviews before. Well, that's probably a problem. You're not assessing why are people leaving your organization.
mm,
Or on the flip side, I talk with recruiters and talent sourcers, and companies are hiring these folks to help them because they're not naturally attracting top talent. There's
right.
not people wanting to come. They have to hire recruiters to try and woo them away some way to come to their company. To
Mm,
me, those are indicators that there's, not totally off, but I think it was certainly, to your point, warning signs that you should be
mm.
investigating.
Correct. Great response.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you step in to help businesses, what is the process that you follow to align people, processes, and performance? And give me an example if you could.
Sure. One way that I do that is I kind of do a organizational health assessment or team performance assessment. There's a couple different ways we can go at it.
Mhm,
Oftentimes, I'll start with a business owner and I'll explore with them what are their pain points, whether it's relationships, is there communication breakdown, how are we doing in execution, or what's our capacity looking like. So I look at these things in a holistic way, and depending on the scope and how big the business is, we will then investigate and I'll do some interviews and analysis of different parts within the company,
mm,
whether it's the administrative team, the sales team, I work with a lot of scientists, the people that are actually boots on the ground in the field, so that we can get a complete picture of what's going on in the organization,
mm,
how are the people interacting, how do they understand, and then we can decide, okay, where are we finding where's the greatest pain point to
mhm,
you're saying, Ashish, is it communication?
mm,
Are we having problems where we're having misunderstandings, or is it we're having problems with our execution and we're getting feedback from our
mm,
clients that the quality isn't quite there, or we're getting inconsistent, could be communication on the client side too.
mm,
Or is it kind of like unfortunately, a toxic work environment where you have a lot of like silos or people don't want to, they're being defensive for different reasons.
mhm.
So I look at that and I want to break it down. And there's ways we can actually do this quantifiably. We
Yeah.
can actually go through, ask questions, we do questionnaires, we do assessments, depends on what the needs are of the company. I look through it. And then we, get some real world data, Ashos, and then we can again make decisions on what's the most important thing. And what I found is these problems didn't happen overnight.
Mhm.
They took time. To unravel them and untangle them takes a while too, because
Yeah.
there's a lot of different personalities and
Correct.
perspectives.
Correct.
I'm sure you've seen that too, right?
Absolutely. And of course, a lot of legacy systems.
Yes, absolutely. And I think the business, I was just talking to a colleague today, and he was talking, I work with big multi-billion dollar companies, and he was saying they're quick, they're slower to move on some
Yeah.
things. And then, it's finding good teaming partners. I was talking to somebody that does SAP today as well on my podcast, and understanding like, hey, where are the problems, and like addressing them quickly, and how do we help people? There's a lot of, I found too, disempowerment as just where people in the organization want to help, but they're disempowered. They're not encouraged
Yeah.
to speak up, to get engaged. And that's one of the first things I find out. How can we empower folks
Yeah.
and leverage them? Because you've hired these people, you've got them in your organization.
Correct.
Sometimes, and they're a lot of times they're disengaged, or their
Mm.
productivity is down because they're not fully feeling a part of the organization.
Mm. The other challenge that I've often seen is
Hmm.
the need to balance strategic planning,
Hmm.
day-to-day operational strategy.
Yep.
How do you help your clients achieve day-to-day organizational demands while looking at a long-term perspective?
Yeah, that is super important because I've been in those organizations, or I've been in it where you do the strategic planning once a year. Well, we do all this, and then it pushes it out there, and we
Yeah.
forget about it.
Mm.
Um, some of the ways I've broken down, because I've learned what I call annualized thinking.
Mhm.
If you just stick it that way, it's not very successful because people forget about it, and then you pull it up a year later, like, oh, that's right, we wanted to do this initiative and this initiative. What I think is important is that you have to review those things regularly, and I think at least monthly go back to them, but also say, what is the top one or two initiatives that we all agree are
Mm.
important? Now, we may have 10, 12, we may have a lot of them we want to hit,
Mm.
but we can't do all of them at the same time. And I think of like a laser. If you have a laser, you don't want to diffuse the light because it will not reach the destination. It just goes everywhere and nothing really kind of gets hit. So it's kind of bringing back everybody
Mm.
and saying, are we all in agreement that this is the point and this is what we want to achieve? And
Mm.
and it's you know, I'm a biologist background, so I know animals, and like herding animals, they will naturally just
Yeah.
go off. Sheep and
Mm.
animals will naturally just go off. Not it's just because that's what they do. And we
Correct.
have to herd them back. We have to bring them back together. And I think sometimes as leaders or business owners, we kind of forget that. We don't expend that energy that's necessary. We're
Mm.
like, oh, do we really have to have that meeting? Do we have to focus on that? Yes. I mean, otherwise it just keeps drifting, drifting, drifting. And before we know it, we're way far off than when we originally planned,
Abs-
right?
Absolutely. Great response.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Moving on, how is technology reshaping the way AEC and professional services firms operate?
Well, it's been interesting the journey since I've been in it for so long. I see there was a resistance there for quite a long time, to probably prior to the COVID 5+ years ago, where we didn't want to have a distributed workforce. We wanted everybody come into the office.
Mm.
We wanted to see anything, and that part of speak a little bit to trust. Well, if I don't see you in the office, I don't know if you're doing the work. I
Mm.
think that now that's changed, but we have to figure out what the rhythm is of using technology, because there's
Mm.
still value in coming together and being in person and seeing each other. Um, I don't think it's an all or nothing situation. It's not all remote. It's not all distributed. It's not all coming back to the office. I think that there's still a struggle here, at least,
Mm.
especially in the U.S., where what does that look like? Because we got mandates, come back in the office, everybody,
Mm.
and then you people are like, that's going to cost me more time and to
Mm.
drive, childcare. There's a lot of other
Yeah.
considerations there.
Mm.
So I think technology is allowing us some flexibility, but we have to understand how to use that in a thoughtful way.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of different tools out there. As I work with companies that use a lot of, what happens is because there's so many options, then you
Mhm.
have a lot of different threads. And so trying to bring people together, and again, if whatever that mechanism is, if it's Google, or if it's Microsoft or Teams or whatever that is, but I recognize that companies to come back and be intentional with what is their strategy.
Mm.
I've talked with a lot of AI consultants and other things. Many of them don't have a very complete approach on how they're going to be using technology, and all the different tools, and so it's very ad hoc at times.
Mm.
Um, and so it's challenging, absolutely. And I
Yeah.
love working with my tech brothers and sisters, because I know what they're trying to achieve, and I very
Mm.
much value that. But I recognize if you don't get the people on board too, they will, you know, go around, or they won't use the system to the way it could be
Correct.
used.
Correct.
So I think that's a big
Yeah.
challenge right now
Yeah.
still. you know?
Absolutely. Well said.
Mhm.
What role does emotional intelligence play in building a high performance team?
Oh, that's super important. I'm
Mhm.
actually going to be talking about that coming up in a couple of months down
Mhm.
here for the Society for Military Engineers here in the United States about how do we build high performance teams to win work in the federal marketplace.
Mm,
If you don't have that intelligence, that's just like
mm,
you're going to be doing more harm than good.
yeah.
We have to understand what it's like. Number one, understanding ourselves. That's my Intelligent Human Leadership podcast. If you don't understand who you are, it's very hard to relate and appreciate others.
Hmm.
Um, and you might try to show up like somebody else, and that's not going to be authentic. It's hard to maintain that.
Mm,
So from the emotional awareness, this understanding how people are, I think there's great. The tools are actually helping now. I think AI tools and other things are helping us do better at
mm,
that. But number one, you have to address and appreciate who you are as
mhm,
an individual
mm,
and recognize your strengths and your weaknesses in that.
mm,
I,
mm,
I'm a, I, we talked about a colleague you had on your podcast, Michael Haynes, is a great connector. We're talking about that.
mm,
I'm a great connector. I understand that about myself, but I also understand that I'm not always as detail oriented. That and I need help with some of those other people, and I don't need
mhm,
to resist their questions and their probing. It's actually going
mm,
to help me. But if
mm,
I get defensive and I get put off and I feel micromanaged, I don't understand how they're coming and trying to help,
mm,
that emotional awareness can be really detrimental because I can start to behave in a way
yeah.
to them and vice versa. And now it becomes toxic, it becomes frustrating, and we start
Mm,
to build walls rather
mm,
than build that connection and collaboration.
mm. Well said.
Mhm.
Well said. My next question for you is, what role does sustainability and environmental responsibility play in modern business leadership?
Oh, well, you're hitting right in my heart here. Stewardship, taking care of things. As a biologist, a natural resources person, that's first and foremost to my world. I live here in
Yeah.
the mountains of Southern California.
Mm,
Um, that is so important. And again, it goes to your people. We have to always constantly, I look at and evaluate, am I doing the things that I'm doing today? Are they helping? Are they helping, and are they being a hindrance? I have to
mm,
recognize and evaluate what I was doing in the past may not be the best thing to be doing now.
mm,
Um, and I think as somebody that's looking at stewardship, looking at impact in the world, we have to continue evaluate um, are those things that we were doing in the past
mm,
still effective?
mm,
Sometimes we kind of do a set it and forget it philosophy. And I think when we look and evaluate that, I've been used to that process of saying, okay, for example, I'll use one of because we're here in Southern California, we got lots of traffic and how we're
mm,
getting through the offices. Again, from a sustainability, how do we keep people? How do we reduce our impact on the
mm,
environment? Can we work remotely? Do we have to have people come in the office? What does that look like? Um, and that not only just in our natural world, but just on our wear and tear of our individual bodies of like in our team.
mm,
How can we come up with solutions? So I think you have to be creative. I think you have to be innovative. You have to invite people to question things,
mhm,
create a space, even if it doesn't quite materialize. I think we have to create an environment to question it,
mm,
to look at those things and say, are these practices effective, or is there a better or different way now that we can
mm.
do that and achieve those same results
Yeah,
or better results,
yeah,
honestly?
yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
I have time for three more questions for you.
Sure, absolutely.
David, what are some emerging challenges you anticipate for small businesses in the next few years?
Mm. Well, I mean, AI is, of course, out there in the rage. That's been going on for a number of years, particularly. I think we have to always look at how technology can help us.
Hmm.
Um, that's all. I think that's just never going to go away. But I think, I mean, I started back in the late '90s when we were just starting with GPS units, for example.
Mm,
Yeah,
mm,
how are we going to use GPS? And then, okay, now we incorporate that's something normal all the
yeah,
time, right?
yeah, yeah.
Um, and same thing with data. Even let's just say 15 years ago, we were trying to figure out like with online mapping
Mm.
software and how are we helping people to do that. And now there's so many different other options. So
Correct.
I think we have to continue to look and see where technology is helping us do our job better. And then that
Mm.
means, okay, how can I shift and that if that answers that question helps me. What can I do help others
Mm.
in our organization? I think in the environmental consulting space, particularly, I think one of the things I'm seeing in at least in the United States is we have a demographic challenge
Mhm.
where we have myself, 50 somethings, um, and we are seeing a fall off of baby boomers that are retiring and have a lot of knowledge. The gentleman that I was talking to, my podcast lady who does ERP, SAP stuff, he said majority of those people are 50 plus. So
Mm.
we're having a knowledge transfer challenge. And
Correct.
that's why I love having the
Mm.
podcast here,
Mm.
but and that's why I love what I'm doing. But there is a if you just look at the pure numbers of in the whole world,
Mm.
there's a smaller population, particularly in the U.S. Will be going to the millennials and Gen Zs. And so, yes, AI is helping that, but we're still having it's going to be an interesting time to how do we have our workforce match up with the needs.
Mm.
It's very
Yeah.
interesting, and I'm curious to see. I know you're in New Delhi; it's a different situation, but in the United States, particularly even California, where we have negative population growth, what does that look like to
I know.
support this aging population?
Absolutely.
You
Absolutely.
know?
And in India also, we're beginning to get there, even though we are a very young country, but
Hmm.
aging is happening. And I'm one of the boomers, and I'm 68.
Yeah.
Um, Two more questions for you, David.
Yes.
How can businesses future-proof themselves against market volatility?
Mm. Well, my angle of being, of organizational health and the
Mm.
people is really your culture. That's one thing you have a direct impact on is the
Yeah.
culture of your company. If
Mm.
you're very intentional about that, that will give you a market edge. You're going to
Yeah.
maintain and attract key talent. And to
Mm.
me, I've worked with so many environmental consulting firms and others that do the same exact work, but it's that team and organization. They love being together. They
Mm.
have clients that naturally want to come back to them time and time again because of their experience with them. To
Mhm.
me, um, the more you can invest in that and in your people, that is going to give you a competitive edge over the long haul. And
Mm.
you're not going to be chasing, you're going to actually have people wanting to be a part of your organization. They're going to say, oh my goodness, I identify with this brand. And I think that this is part of me. And like I said,
Mm.
particularly for the younger
Yeah.
generations, that's very important to them. So I
Mm.
would definitely encourage you to be looking at your culture and being very hands-on, not
Mm.
hands-off. There's culture whether you're hands-on or off, but if
Mm.
you're hands-on, you're being very intentional about it, you're going to be so much better off.
Well said. And my last question, what is the most rewarding transformation you have witnessed in a leadership team?
Oh my goodness. Well, I love it when I see the aha moment of the business owner. I use this example because I'm a big sci-fi geek fan. But the movie Ghostbusters, a great scene in there where they're trying to
Hmm.
take down the big marshmallow man, right? And they have these different streams of they're shooting their beams over and they're not getting it done. It's not working. And they say, why don't, something is, why don't we cross the streams? And when
Hmm.
they cross the streams, that's when they stop the marshmallow man. That's how they accomplish the mission. And to me, that's where I come in and I love to
Yeah.
help the business owner identify where can we cross the streams? Where can we have a multiplying effect?
Hmm.
That they didn't realize it was just a matter of like, oh, there was this, we kept doing these things, and we just like, oh my goodness, all of a sudden there's a multiplying effect, and that to me is so rewarding.
Hmm.
And when we can do that again and again and again over the course of working together,
Hmm.
that just lights me up, and
Yes.
that's where I want to come and help more business owners and
Amazing,
individuals.
amazing, amazing. And on
Yeah,
that note, David, I just want to say what a fabulous conversation this has been. I think I have learned some very interesting new tips from you. My viewers and listeners have got some great inputs from you on leadership, on different aspects of strategic planning, and how technology is likely to be able to change the way small and medium businesses function. Thank you
yeah.
for speaking to me, and good luck to you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you having me on the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the brand called You.